Hello, I'm Matt Lucas, and you're listening to Highbury and Heels.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Highbury and Heels. Today it is me, Sophie, and Sofia. Say hello, Sofia.
Hi, Sophie. How are you doing?
Pretty epic, thank you very much. All buzzed about that Europa League draw, but mostly I'm really excited about today's guest. One of Britain's best-loved comedians, actors, writers, singers, screenwriters, and now authors. His book, Little Me, My Life from A to Z, is out on your bookshelves and would be the best stocking stuffer you can get. Welcome to Highbury and Heels, Mr. Matt Lucas.
Hello there. Am I one of the first male guests that you've had who has worn heels?
I think you're the first. Nobody else.
We don't know. We might ask Lee Dixon if he's done fancy. He may have done fancy dress. You know those dodgy Christmas parties, Matt? Those footballer parties? I bet there's been heels involved somewhere along the lines.
Yeah, you would hope so.
You would hope so.
I bet they don't wear them as well as you.
Thank you.
No way. Let's kick off real quick because I've got to get your opinion on the game. Sofia, Southampton, Matt, Southampton. It wasn't the best, was it? Matt, what are your thoughts on that match?
There's this thing which Arsenal have started doing, which is letting in these early goals. And I think in the Premiership or in any competition, you have to start the match well. You have to be focused at the beginning. Otherwise, any team will punish you. And suddenly you're a goal down or 2 goals down. And that is what has happened recently. And, the team has to really focus from the beginning of the match.
Why do you think we've been having such a slow start? And it's, you think we would have learned from the Manchester United game, but once again, we start slow, we concede early, and we're on the back foot from the very start.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's complacency. I mean, you wouldn't have thought that the team would have been complacent against Manchester United. I don't know the answer. I just know that it's a sort of a bit of warming up when the game kicks off, and that's no good.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because, I'll really quick before we move on, because we want to just get stuck into how your love affair with Arsenal started. But Alexis Sanchez, do you drop him or do you start him, Matt, in our next game?
I would have sold him in the summer, and I know that's tough.
No, I'm with you. Me and Sophie have this argument all the time. She wants to keep him. I think he should have gone in the summer. But anyway, continue. Go on.
I think history tells us that a player that doesn't want to be at the club has to be sold. Yeah. And also, I just think it's a weird feeling that, one of the things that you have to say about Wenger, whether you're Wenger in or Wenger out, is that he's sort of fiscally very irresponsible. And that is to the benefit of the club in the long term, at least. The stadium move happened because the club would be able to make £1 million more per game, on gate receipts. He's been a smart cookie financially, that he got a lot of money for Overmars. He got a lot of money for Anelka. I mean, it goes right back to the beginning of his tenure. And then you have this strange situation where it looks like, the two of the 3 most valuable players, if you count Lacazette as the other one, 2 of the 3 most valuable players might be leaving for nothing. It's strange. I mean, the one thing I will say about that is, whenever you hear a sum of money, cited as, how much Alexis could go for, that if the club had renewed Alexis's contract, 6 months ago, as we'd all hoped would have happened, then the club would be paying an extra 150,000 pounds a week in wages over that period. So actually, when you hear it's 50 million, you can probably knock off 10 million.
True.
Because that, you'd have to pay extra and the signing on fee and what have you. So, but I don't know, that is such a strange thing. And I think it's hanging over the club. I think it's hanging over the club because there's an uncertainty over whether they'll stay. There's uncertainty over whether they even want to be there now. And there's also just a feeling of just watching in slow motion pound notes just fly out of the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's kind of like what happened with Arsene last season. You know, it was all up in the air. We didn't know whether he was going to stay, whether he was going to go. Even though deep down, I think we all kind of knew he was going to stay, sadly. What about, Ozil? Would you like him to, because I want Alexis to go, but I want Ozil to stay. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I would rather he stayed, but
I love that Matt Lucas agrees with me.
I think most Arsenal fans who are sensible would want a player like him, at the club. I was talking yesterday to a US, player, Jermaine Jones. He's played in Germany, and he used to play with Ozil back in the day in Germany. And he was saying to me yesterday, he goes, I just don't understand why people don't appreciate him. He goes, and it bothers him. You know, he was saying it bothers Ozil. And I think he's a player, Matt, that's affected by that. And I don't think sometimes we, the fans, help him.
You know, I think the criticism is fair, actually.
Oh.
I think there are times when he hasn't turned up.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, you said that the only thing that makes you feel tribal is Arsenal. Why is that? And when did your love affair begin with the club?
Well, my late father, when he was 14 or 15, had an accident on his push bike and went over the handlebars.
Oh.
He was very seriously injured. And, it was the surgeon for the Arsenal team who operated on him. And while he was in, you know, recovering, it took about a year, the surgeon used to give my dad free tickets to Arsenal. My dad he wasn't a football fan. This was like 1958, 1959. My dad was a cricket fan, but, my dad used to just go to, to Highbury, and he became a fan. And then he passed that on to my older brother and then on to me. But I wasn't really, when I was a little kid, I wasn't bothered by football. I thought it was boring and I couldn't understand it. And the thing that got me was collecting Panini football stickers when I was about 9.
Yes.
And suddenly I knew I could, if I watched a football match, I could recognize the players and the manager and the team. And I knew some of the stories, like, oh, this is interesting. He's playing on this team and his brother plays for the opposition, or, oh, he's playing for the team he used to play for, or just, I knew stats, you know, a few little stats that I'd read on the back of the football stickers. And so it started there was a sort of web of stories that sprung out of collecting football stickers. And then the game wasn't this sort of played in a vacuum, 22 men kicking around the ball. It suddenly
made sense.
Yeah, it made sense. It had a meaning and a context. And from then on, I became a really big fan. And my dad used to take me and my brother, occasionally to Highbury as a treat in the very early 80s. But when I was 13, 14, I started going regularly myself with my brother and another friend. So the season, the 88-89 season, for instance, I was at virtually every home game.
Wow.
Were you at Anfield that night?
I was not at Anfield, no. I mean, I wouldn't have gone to Liverpool. In fact, I've never been to Anfield. That's terrible.
Oh, wow.
But I wouldn't have gone to an away match like that. No, not back then. I occasionally go away now, but, yeah, so it's just so, and since then I've been pretty fanatical, really.
Matt, which team do you think is superior, better? The Invincibles team or that Anfield 89 team? Which moment do you think goes down as the moment in the history of the club out of the two, if you had to pick?
Anfield 89 will never be bettered, I think. It's just like Man City has their, if Man City goes through this season unbeaten, they'll still remember winning the league, 3 or 4 years ago with virtually the last kick of the game. I mean, there's nothing, so dramatic as that. That's still, I mean, in fact, it's not just, the best Arsenal moment. It might be the best moment of my life.
Oh, really?
Well,
so what do you remember of it then that night?
I went around, I remember going, with my brother, to, the home of, a friend of ours in Edgware. So North London, I guess, Northwest London. And there were 5 of us, four Gooners and a Scouser watching.
That could be a name of a film.
Yeah. Watching the match on TV and going crazy when the goal went in at the end. And then getting in the car and driving up to Highbury. And so, we joined the street party that was there, and, we were honking horns, and, I remember, somebody kneeling down and kissing, the steps outside the marble halls, and we just danced in the streets and just couldn't believe it.
I don't think any of us could believe it. Anyway, moving on to your book, Little Me, My Life from A to Z, or Z if you're American. How do you start the process for an autobiography? It seems such an overwhelming thing.
Well, the first thing you do is you do a deal and you get a deadline, and then the process has to begin. And I always think, people I meet that say, oh, I want to write this thing, and they don't write. It's because you don't have a deadline. When you have a deadline, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was writing on Christmas Day last year. You just have to do it. That's all right.
Wow.
Did they get annoyed with you around the Christmas table going, put that down and come over here?
I did. I had a 4-hour Christmas last year, and that was fine. That was lovely. And I was very lucky that anybody wanted to publish my book. And so, but it was the only way to meet my deadline. Well, for years I'd been resistant to doing an autobiography. There were things I didn't want to talk about, or I worried it was too early. But in the end, I came up with this idea of doing it from A to Z. So it's like B is for baldness, G is for gay, J is for Jewish, but it covers all my work as well. And it's a kind of loose chronology. So, the good thing I think about doing it as an A to Z is that it doesn't start off with, I was born in blah, blah, blah. Cause I mean, the first few years of your life are not generally the most interesting. So it starts when I'm 12 years old. And then it jumps back to when I'm 4, because there's a big event that happened in my life then. I'm pleased with the book. I worked hard on it. People have responded very warmly. And it is, hopefully it's funny, but it's also, there's some really honest stuff in there as well. And please, but that's the overwhelming message.
So Matt, I'm very curious, because I always think, gosh, if I was to sit down and write a story or a book, I'd upset a lot of my family if I was really super honest. And in your position, being such a public figure and such a beloved figure in the country, how do you manage the honest part without burning bridges to the ground to the point where you can never walk over them again?
Well, I do say at the very beginning in the preface, everything in this book is true, but not everything is in this book. And I think ultimately you do have to be a bit selective. Not everyone in my life is a public figure. And the way to look at it is that every autobiography you've ever read is written by someone who had bad experiences that they didn't put into the book. The exception to that is probably Katie Price. It's generally you're selective, and the book isn't written. excuse me, winter cough. The book is not written to settle scores. I mean, and so there are times when you'd have to read between the lines, but also there's 100,000 words, and that's there isn't room for everything, and people don't just want to read gripes, that you've got to have a bit of light and shade. Mm-hmm. So, but it is honest. It's very honest and revealing and candid, I think.
Yeah. And that's been you in your work though over the years, hasn't it? From, the great success you've had with Little Britain, but then Doctor Who came along, and I mean, it's such a massive show, cult following. Were you prepared for the reception that you got for being part of that show? Were you blown away by it?
Well, it's strange because when the character first appeared that I played, he was just in a Christmas special. Mm. And the Doctor Who Christmas specials are quite broad and light. They're different tonally from the rest of the series. So I was just in it for 5 minutes, and I was just kind of horsing around. So when it was announced after that I was returning for the series, actually the fans were in uproar because the kind of performance I'd given in the Christmas special was pretty cartoony.
It was brilliant, though.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But when it came to the series, I toned it down a little bit, and I think it became a little bit more textured. And I think over the course of the series, people seem to come around to it. Yeah, it's really nice. It's been a really good, enjoyable, positive experience. And, it's a great honor to be part of the Whoniverse. And the fans are, I mean, it's an interesting one with the fans because the people who love Doctor Who have a relationship with it unlike any other show. It's one of the few shows where the lead character doesn't kiss the girl, fall in love, blah, blah. There's a slight melancholy to him. There's a loneliness. There's an isolation about him. And I think what happens is that, a significant amount of the fan base, identify with that. And I think there's, when I've appeared at a convention recently or when I've met fans, there's quite a few who are on the spectrum, who are affected by autism and Asperger's and things like that. And it's a real honor to be part of something that connects with people who find it hard to connect with the work sometimes. And yet they've chosen the show you're in and they connect with your performance. And it's just a real honor. And it's interesting. Little Britain wasn't like that. I mean, Little Britain was very popular, but it was also very populist. And I think Doctor Who has a different vibe, and it's just a great honor to be part of something which already has such a brilliant legacy, and to be parachuted into that.
So you was just talking, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, but
that's an understatement, major understatement.
But I'm also, I was a massive Little Britain fan as well. I saw you live. I loved it mainly because it was so politically incorrect, but in a really good way, which is my sense of humour all over. Do you think these days you'd be able to get away with skits like Fat Fighters and things like that?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I get asked this because people say, they'd like to see Little Britain again, but I don't know how you do it now because I think I agree that fat shaming is something that we have, it has a name for a start, which it didn't really have.
Back then, yeah.
And doing transgender characters or transvestite, and playing other races, I think, you'd do it differently now. And that's okay. Times change and some people look back and they're quite angry that we did it the way we did it. But at the same time, we didn't make the show in a vacuum. I mean, the BBC were very happy with what we were making and the audiences tuned in and watched it. And, there was occasionally, when people objected to the show at the time, they objected to two things really. One was the vulgarity of the show, and another was the sense that it was a bit repetitive. But they didn't really, at the time, object to the idea that we were playing characters of other races, or that we were playing transvestites, or any of that. that wasn't really a voice. I mean, maybe there wasn't the outlet for it the way there is now with Twitter and Facebook, for people to make themselves heard. But nonetheless, we would have heard it if it was loud enough. And I think everyone's changed and it's different now. And I think you've got to make a show in the right time. You know, you've got to make a show time to win. Otherwise, no good.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for everything, isn't there? But
would Love Thy Neighbour get made now?
Hell
would
no.
That show that
Hell
would never
no.
that just would never be allowed on TV, right?
Well, yeah, but I would say Love Thy Neighbour. Even in the 80s, they weren't repeating Love Thy Neighbour. Yeah. I mean, it was time. You know, fashions change, things move on. I think if you did Little Britain now and you did it the way we used to do it, that would cause a lot of upset. If you did it now and you didn't do it the way we used to do it, that would also cause upset. So I'm not really sure. There's no lack of desire to do it. I haven't figured out. And I don't think David has either. I don't know. I mean, there's not
a 21st century version.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. It doesn't mean it can't be done.
Right.
Who knows?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan and I loved you as Nardole. You said recently that there might be a chance to return to the show in that role. How realistic is that prospect? I want to know. The Whovians want to know. Tell us, Matt. Tell us.
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
How did I know I was going to get an answer like that? I was hoping I'd get an exclusive out of you, but I won't push it. I'll move on. Now, I'm a massive sci-fi geek. I love Marvel. I grew up reading Marvel comics. And so one of my dreams is I've always wanted to go to San Diego ComicCon. And I believe you went. What was it like? Is it as crazy as it looks? What's your best memory from the event? Tell me all.
Well, I did go this year. What happens really is if you're appearing at the event, you get sort of shuffled around from hotel to convention hall to journalists. So you don't. I mean, I didn't really get much of a taste of the scale of the event or the kind of the character of it because we were just sort of on this tight schedule and traveled in these groups and sort of bust in and bust out and what have you. But when we appeared at the actual panel, that was really wonderful, and I think it was really great for Stephen Moffat and Peter Capaldi because they're both leaving the show. They weren't the only people leaving the show, but they'd both been on the show for so long. And it was just lovely, I think, for them to to use a phrase, that Darius Dinesh used on, Pop Stars, to feel the love in the room.
Darius Dinesh. Hasn't he changed his name now? It's
Darius Campbell now, I think.
There you go. I see it. I watch Pop Stars. That's a real retro.
Yeah, that's a throwback right there.
Yeah.
You're listening to Highbury and Heels with Matt Lucas. You can get his book right now, Little Me, My Life from A to Z, one of our favourite celebrity gooners joining us on the show today. We want to touch on the Gay Gooners Club just a little bit, and not a lot of Arsenal fans out there really know about it. Tell us a little bit about that and how you came to be involved, Matt, and kind of, it's not just, I know that there's a lot of fun content online sometimes, but the level of seriousness of all of that too.
Well, I think, we're living in a time where everything's under the microscope, and actually a lot of the press surrounding Arsenal is quite negative. People are frustrated that the team haven't delivered a title in, 12, 13 years now. And we hear about, the stuff that frustrates some fans. What we don't really hear about is the positive stuff that the club do. And I think it's probably related to, building that new stadium, part of the concept of the new stadium, and in terms of getting planning permission, was about honouring and serving the community. And so, as part of all of that, there's a campaign that runs, I think, pretty much permanently at the club called Arsenal for Everyone. And, under that banner, some fans set up, the Gay Gooners, an LGBTQ, supporters group. And Arsenal was the first Premiership club to have its own gay supporters group, as far as I know. And the club embraced it. And when, there was the Pride March, Arsenal have given, the Gay Gooners an official Arsenal banner, to march with. They have a banner at the ground. You can see, sort of above the clock end, to the kind of the east side of the clock end. You can see a rainbow banner there for the Gay Gooners. And, any Gay Gooners events are written about in the programme. And it's just, I think it's a really positive thing. And it's worlds away from, you know, when I grew up on the terraces where you would never have been out. I mean, obviously I was too young to be out then anyway, but you'd never have been out. And, there was a lot more homophobic chanting. I mean, things still need to change. But now, as we look at it, there's 20 Premiership clubs and 15 of them have their LGBTQ supporters groups. And I think that's really good. The next step really, I think, is for players to feel like they can be out. And I think that will happen. I don't think we're that far away from it.
Yeah.
And I think it's good, you know, a sense of feeling included. I mean, it's, you know, it's not that long ago that there weren't really black players, you know, and you didn't see many black faces at Highbury, Indian faces. And now it feels much more multicultural.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a different type of apartheid in some regards, which is an economic apartheid a little bit at Arsenal, which is just that ticket prices are pretty high.
Astronomical.
Astronomical, yeah.
I guess.
For the average guy, it's really expensive for them to go to a game. You know, you're talking about, I'd like to get this take on from you in terms of Thomas Hitzelsberger came out after really his career was over. A young player here called Robbie Rogers, who I'm sure you're familiar with, came out during retired, came back. Is it going to take someone to come out while they're playing for that movement, that part of the movement to really progress, Matt?
Yeah, but it will happen. It'll happen in the next few years, I think. And, you know, the first gay footballers will be superstars. They'll get every advertising contract. They'll have a reach beyond the game. And it's tough, you know, because actually I think in the dressing rooms, players just want to play with the best players. You know, that's what you want to do. You want to play with someone on the pitch who can defend, who can score, who can save shots, who's strong. That's what you want. Mm-hmm. So I think the problems potentially are more with the fans, because I think fans will prey on whatever they perceive to be a weakness. And so I think there's, you know, the away fans you worry about, you know, the opposition fans as well. Yeah. You worry about what they might say. But at the same time, the way football banter works, I'm quite sure that if for instance Arsenal had a gay player and the opposition fans had chants about them, the Arsenal fans would come up with a chant to rebuff it, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's it's more organic than that. So let's see what happens. But I think it will happen. And we'll have gay royals.
Yeah,
yes.
There probably already is, but it's just kept quiet.
It's just under wraps. Yeah, gay royals, gay footballers. Yes.
You're saying there's more than one queen.
Nice.
Brilliant.
So,
I should probably love you and leave you. But we've got a competition question, haven't we?
We do. So
the competition.
So, you lovely lot, Highbury and Heels are giving you the chance to win a signed copy of Matt's autobiography. All you have to do is answer the following question. Take it away, Matt.
Okay, so in Doctor Who, I play Nardole. What is the name of the other companion that I appeared alongside? The female companion, and the full name, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if you want a chance to win a copy, email highburyandheels@gmail.com with Matt Lucas competition in the title. Give us your name and the answer in the email, and we'll announce the winner on next week's show.
And you get a signed copy, by the way. Christmas has come early for that particular Gooner that's going to win that book. We did have a few more questions for you, but what we'd like to do, Matt, is throw them out to you over Twitter. We had a quick fire round and is it true section, and we have to know the answers to some of these questions. So Gooners, look out for that on Twitter. If you're willing, Matt, we're going to lob them your way on social media over the next few days.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Up the Gunners.
Thank you.
Up the Gunners.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Matt Lucas for joining us today. Sophia, I'm not feeling too lonely without the other two. How you doing over there in Blighty? You a bit chilly? You all right?
Oh,
Everything?
It's -2 according to the temperature to the temperature gate, and it's just not good. I mean, I've got my central heating on full blast. I've still got my thick jumper on. I'm just trying to keep warm, really. It's proper winter over here. What about over there?
My social media timeline has been filled with snow pictures from everybody back home in England. And yesterday I was in LA and I'm basking in 84 Fahrenheit. I mean, it just doesn't seem fair, does it? So I'm going to move on because it's a little bit mean to talk about your weather versus my weather. But
yes,
I have to tell the Gooner Nation listening to Highbury and Heels right now, Europa League draw yesterday. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm bored. Who cares? But let me tell you something. You're never bored when Sophia does research, okay? Because most of us, when we looked at the draw, we were like, who the hell are Ostersund? That sounds like a really nice hotel somewhere where you could go, 5-star luxury, put your feet up. But oh no, apparently they're a team in Sweden somewhere. And so Sophia sends me this whole thing on this team, and I'm laughing my ass off because I'm thinking, number one, she's so good at research, and number two, oh my goodness, look at all this stuff. Tell us a little bit about Ostersund.
So Ostersund, they're commonly known as Ostersunds FK, Ostersund, or OFK, and they're a little team in Sweden. They've only been around for 21 years, and they came together. It was 3 clubs that were put together and made into one. They play their games at the Jamtkraft Arena. They qualified for the Europa League after winning the Swedish Cup in April this year. They were in the Europa League qualifiers and beat, of all teams, Galatasaray, so that was huge. They then got to the group stage and everybody thought there's no way they'd get out of a group that had Athletic Bilbao and Hertha Berlin, but get out of it they did. In second, they are managed by the only British coach in the Europa League. He's called Graham Potter. He's played for Southampton.
Any relation to Harry?
Well, he's done magic by getting them to the knockout stages, so there it is. Ba-dum-tish. Anyway, we play Ostersund away on February the 15th and at home on February the 22nd. I'm hoping that we actually don't take them for granted, as we often do to these smaller teams, and we win. What I found was funny, though, was that after they saw that they drew Arsenal in the Europa League knockout stages, their official Twitter account tweeted, "Who's excited for Arsenal Fan TV when we knock Arsenal out?" So it was nice to see.
Unbelievable. The banter, the gall, the audacity of this team we've never heard of to throw down the gauntlet and dangle the Arsenal TV carrot right in front of our faces. Oh, we're going to smash them. We are going to smash them.
Yeah, I say bring it on at OFK. Bring it on. But go on. Sorry, go on.
And I was going to say, and how awesome though that we avoided all of the Champions League rejects, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
That was the goal, right? That was the goal in this round, was just to avoid Dortmund and Atletico,
Celtic,
and all of
Napoli. You know, there were a lot of decent teams that were coming down into the Europa League, because as soon as I saw that, I thought, knowing our luck, we're going to get one of those. And luckily, or I'm hoping that this doesn't come to bite me on the arse, or on the arsenal. Luckily we avoided them and got Ostersund, and I'm hoping that we can knock them out and move on. And you know, this is a trophy we can definitely win. Man U won it last year, and that got them into the Champions League. It's a trophy that Arsenal's never won. So, you know, we should really properly go for it.
I agree. And I think that maybe we'll follow the Mourinho model of, as we go into this deep and into, you know, the Premier League, and we see where we land, we've got to go for this. It's really super important. It's a trophy at the end of the day. Yeah. I personally would love to win it. And I think it would be really exciting for us to be in a big, big final like that, no matter what you say. In fact, I'm thinking of publishing Sofia's Ostersund's research as a white paper prior to the fixture. Well, there's a lot going on in football, not just the Europa League. We don't care about the Champions League draw. All right. Spurs got Juventus, Chelsea, and are going to lose to Barca, and the tie is PSG, isn't it? And Real Madrid. Let's talk about what is going on after the Manchester derby. Sofia, you have got some stuff to share with us. What the hell is this? Seems much bigger than the Battle of Old Trafford.
I call it the Battle of the Bottle, but that's just me.
the bottle of Old Trafford instead of the Battle of Old Trafford. What the hell's going on, mate?
Well, it was just nuts. I mean, apparently Lukaku threw a ball which hit Mikel Arteta in the head, and he got a bloody eye. It was, and all because they lost. They're not great losers, let's be honest. I mean, so what if Man City want to play music in their dressing room? I want to play music in their dressing room. They've gone how many points clear? You might as well write off the title. I think, you know, I know it's only December, but I think we're all just kind of fighting for second, third and fourth.
Bad.
Yeah, we're fighting for second, third and fourth.
It's not good. But here's what they're reporting today. Apparently, Mourinho went in there, right? Didn't he? To tell him to
turn the
quiet.
music down.
And Edison or someone threw a bottle at him first. So Lukaku and Rojo had their managers back. I mean, this is like a bar brawl. This is they should have taken this out onto the streets. I mean, this is amazing. And to see the players like jump and defend Mourinho the way they did. But then also apparently some of the Manchester City players were saying to Zlatan, you talk a lot, but you deliver little, or something like. It got really bitchy. Yeah. It's handbags at dawn.
Yeah, but then when you have Jose as a manager, what do you expect? Let's be honest.
He's a sore loser.
Oh, he's
a sore loser.
Oh, it's just not. Anyway, apart from the Battle of the Bottle, or the Bottle of Old Trafford, or whatever you want to call it, talking about the game, there was a lot of hate for Lukaku on Twitter, and there was some quite funny memes and tweets that came out off the back of it, and there was one suggested a new meaning for the word Lukaku, and the meaning to be to help your enemies succeed. And if you were to use, Lukaku in a sentence, it would be, after investigation, it was discovered that the robbers have been receiving Lukaku from the police.
So good.
And another tweeted, for the remaining of this year, may your enemies be as confused as Lukaku was in the Manchester derby. But
seriously.
My personal favourite, though, was David Blaney's fuming. His record of doing nothing in the box for 44 days has been smashed by Romelu Lukaku. Which I thought was brilliant.
That is absolute gold. I tell you, he's wearing that shirt. That shirt is very heavy for that lad right now, isn't it? He started off really well. And, you know, again, I was talking to when I was talking to Jermaine yesterday, he thinks that Lukaku started tanking the minute Zlatan came back. And I didn't time that. In my mind, I thought, wow, was that before or after? But really, the burden is great for that lad right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is. And it's really weird because before, when Lukaku was going to be available, I was one of the few people that wanted him to, I was like, why don't we go for him? He's used to the Premier League. He's big. He's tough. He scores goals, and put him in a better team and, he'd do better. But he started off really well, but his goals have just dried up. And I think the pressure of being at a big club is really getting to him.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
But
definitely.
I just want to say to everyone, we love getting feedback from you all. And we love all the Twitter stuff, the Facebook stuff, even email us. So don't forget, if you have any comments or questions, please do get in touch with us. You can find us at Highbury Heels on Twitter. Email us at highburyandheels@gmail.com, and we'd really love you to head to our Facebook page, get the conversation going, and just post your comments, post your questions. We'll answer them. We're always checking. So that's Facebook, and it's Highbury and Heels.
Brilliant stuff. Definitely get in touch, keep the dialogue going. Right then, one of our favourite segments on the show, as you guys know, we like to have a little bit of fun mixed in with the football chat. It's time for a little snog, marry, avoid. Now, I don't know if Amanda would have found it as hard this week as she did the other week when we had Thierry and all those guys.
When you chopped her in it.
Yeah, this one, play along, guys, okay, as you listen here. I've got 3 for you. You ready? You ready, Sophia?
I'm ready.
Right. George Graham, Arsene Wenger, and Bruce Rioch. Boom!
Oh my, why? Why those? Okay, I know there are last 3 managers, but why?
We can't be ageist here, right?
Okay.
We're a this show is a democracy for all the people and all kinds of people, right? So we did our 3 legends a couple of weeks ago. So it only seems fitting that we do 2 of our best managers. The other one did bring Dennis Bergkamp to Arsenal, yeah, right? So we've got to be grateful.
But that's the only good thing he did. Let's be fair.
All right. Okay. So you go. This might be really easy for you. I'm not sure.
I think it is going to be very easy for me. Definitely avoid Rioch. I don't have to explain why. He nearly forced Ian Wright out of the club, which pains me. And I just found it boring football, boring man, avoid like the plague. Snog, I'm going to go for George Graham.
Yeah, you are, baby.
Of course I am. And I would say, just to say thanks for Anfield 89, and thanks for the Cup Winners' Cup, because, Arsene, you still haven't won us a European trophy yet. Gorgeous George has. So he gets a snog just for that.
Right then.
And that leaves Arsene. I'm going to marry Arsene because if rumours are to be true, I hear he's a bit of a goer.
Oh, you dirty stuff out. I love it.
And
look at you.
I know. Apparently he's got a great sense of humour. He loves football. What's not to like? Who wouldn't be wanting to be married to that for the rest of your life, eh?
Some of you may be Wenger out, but Sofia is clearly Wenger in.
And
so
in,
here I go.
And in, and in.
I'm gonna be similar to you. I'm gonna go Bruce Rioch avoid. But I'm going to snog Arsene Wenger.
Oh.
Because I'm not sure I can deal with the voice for the rest of my life. I love it in spurts, but I'm not sure I can deal with that.
You don't like a French accent? What's wrong with you?
Well, there's French and then there's Arsene's accent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
So it's a little bit different. And I'm going to marry George Graham because, I think we'd dunk our digestives in our tea together as we rock on our chairs watching scenes from Anfield 89. Amanda will come over for a cup of tea and talk to him about Anfield 89. Oh, it'll be amazing. So yeah, there you have it. That's our snog, marry, avoid. A little bit different, bit of a different twist for you.
Yeah, very different twist
this week. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap up the show, but before we wrap up, we've got some quick fire predictions for you. Some interesting games coming up against Newcastle in the league and West Ham in the EFL Cup. What have you got?
So I call it the crap cup. It will always be the crap cup, even though Arsenal's never won. Oh, honestly. I think he'll go for a more experienced team than he has done in the competition. Maybe use the Europa one because we're so far into it now and there's a possibility we could win. And it's one he's never won, as I said. So I think he will put a stronger team out, should I say. We can't take them for granted though, because they just beat Chelsea at the weekend, and I think David Moyes will really make it tough. They'll put 10 men behind the ball. It'll be dull, but I'm predicting a 2-1 win. I think we will concede. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet, especially as Mustafi's out and Ramsey's out for the game. So I'm going 2-1 for the crap Carabao Cup. Do you want my Newcastle one as well, or do you?
No, wait, hold on a second, because when you say stronger than what?
Well, he's been putting in the previous rounds of the Carabao Cup. He's been putting a really young team out, hasn't he?
Yeah,
And I think he'll go for more of the mixture of bench senior pros with the younger, so the Reece Nelsons with the Giroux and the Walcotts, rather than just the Reece Nelsons, the Iwobis, etc., etc. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Well, I was just teasing a little bit too.
That's
because
all right,
it's not
dear.
like I know.
I only allow you to do it to me, nobody else.
Yeah. Thank you. I like that. I got a hall pass from Queen Guna right there. So I think West Ham peaked when they beat Chelsea. I think that it's very tough ask for them to beat us this week in the EFL Cup. So I'm going to go for a nice, I don't think it's going to be easy for us, but I will go for a nice 2-1 victory also.
So you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with that. And then Newcastle have been a bit up and down. They've been playing well, but haven't necessarily been getting the results. They started off really well this season, and I kind of hate it because they're at that point where they're kind of due, because they've definitely been grinding and putting the performances in. What do you think against the Magpies?
Well, they've lost the last 5 of their last 6. So
they've not been playing badly though. That's weird. It's like especially in the last game against Leicester, they were so unlucky. I thought.
Yeah, they were unlucky, but they're worse than us for lapses in concentration. I mean, they have a lapse of concentration. It costs them. They never get away with, it hitting the bar. It usually goes in against them. But I think because we're at home, where apart from the Man U loss, we've got a great record there. I think and especially against Newcastle, we've got a great record. So I think we'll win. The only real worry is that Mustafi's out. Arsene said that Mustafi's out for both the West Ham game and the Newcastle game, and Per was terrible against Southampton.
Oh, it was awful. It was god awful.
So I'm worried about that, but I still think we'll come through it, and I think we'll win 3-1. I think we'll concede again.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. Per is love. We all love Per, but he cannot be on the pitch. He's just not, he's done. He's not.
He's past it now.
It's just, and it's unfair to kind of put him in that position, because I think we're kind of setting him up to fail as opposed to setting up that back four to succeed. And I felt like from the get-go against Southampton, it just wasn't, it didn't feel like it was going to be right at the back there, and it wasn't. And I think that Newcastle are definitely a team that can hit you. But I think as much as we can let in goals, they can let in goals too. I think you're right about that. So I think we're going to see a lot of goals. I fancy us in a 4-2 here. I fancy a little 4-2 victory. Yes. I fancy quite a few goals. And remember, you can always chime in and get involved. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. And Twitter, we're Highbury Heels. Everywhere else, we are Highbury. We're Highbury and Heels. go to our YouTube channel, Highbury and Heels, and you will hear interviews with Lee Dixon, Stevie Nicol. You'll hear our last interview with Ryan Giggs, which was absolutely amazing. And that's where you'll find this great interview as well with Matt Lucas, very generous with his time, very busy promoting his book right now. We hope that goes really well for him, and we're very thankful to him for coming on the show today. We have got some really super exciting guests coming up, but I'm not allowed to tell you because the girls will kill me.
Lips are sealed.
I'm the girl who wants to tell everyone what I got them for Christmas. So this is really hard for me. So thanks for joining us today. And Sophia, what do we say?
We're always Arsenal.
Thanks for listening.